This is Pet Biz Peoples Meet the Founders. This is their story. Hi, Matt. How's things going?
Still good, still gray, no sun, not warm, all the good stuff.
Well, no, we still got sun, but no wind this time, which is kind of cool. I still got this branch that's hanging that should have been blown off, and it hasn't gone. I don't know why, but I keep waiting for it to go somewhere. I sit there and watch it.
Yes. Just waiting for you to walk underneath, I guess.
Right? It probably is, Dang branch. So, all right. So I got some questions for you today. You ready?
Yeah, I'm going to give it's one-word answers, right? That's what we're doing?
Hey, nope, not even close. Yeah. So,
Ready?
big question. So,
Yep.
what was the biggest mistake you made in your pet business, and what did it teach you?
You mean like overall, through ever, or just at the beginning? Which one?
Overall.
Okay. I think the biggest one that I made, which is an ongoing one, is to not set expectations properly with people who had worked with you for a while. And so, meaning that where you get too comfortable with people who are working for you a long time, especially managers, and it's a big thing. I think the biggest hardest thing when you're building your business is allowing other people to start taking over running certain parts, as every owner or founder has gone through. So I think that part where I just kind of felt uncomfortable when I was younger, when I saw things going the wrong way or not doing the right things, but not wanting to, get upset or get involved. And it definitely slowed me down from growing my business, because I think it's really hard to manage people that you are closer to,
Mm-hmm.
and where you have that relationship where you don't want to have conflict, or you don't want to and so you tend not to say the things you want to say until it's too late. And it took me a bit to get comfortable with that and understand that it wasn't a bad thing to sort of set expectations and have everyone on the same page, and it's okay if there's a little spilt milk.
Did you ever hire family? Curiosity kills the cat on my end, because I did, and that was not fun.
I never hired family. I have. I never hired. I got asked to hire a couple friends' girlfriends, which I never did. I actually warned people not to. I just literally had this conversation the other day with a client, telling them they wanted to hire a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And my line to them is, the friendship is more important than what you need in the business. So I would highly not recommend it. Because I think it's so difficult to do. And they didn't understand until I said, no matter what you think of the relationship, you are now their boss. And that creates a dynamic that you are not used to in your friendship. And
Not
it's,
very few people can do the boss. Your work is work and play is play, and you can't. Very few people can divide that.
it's really hard to do. And I always say the friendships are so, true friendships are so rare that it's just not worth it. You can always find someone else to do that job that's not a close friend of yours.
Right. Very true. I was just curious. Yeah, I made the mistake of hiring family. Caused a
That
divorce.
I was gonna say, the pause tells me that didn't end up so well.
It did not.
that's
It did cause a divorce. So,
that's like a movie where you see the montage and you see them being hired, and then it sees you walking out with your bags.
Oh no, I didn't walk out with the bags. There was clothes left out on the front lawn, but I didn't walk out with the bags.
Right.
But yes, yeah. So
Yep.
all right. So when it came to number side of the business, revenue growth, operations, what one matrix did you obsess over?
I would say the two biggest ones that I obsessed over is conversion of consultations, like people inquiring about the service and converting them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what was our percentage of converting people? I used to say, is if you walk onto the parking lot, you want to buy the car. So are we converting those? And what was that rate? And then the second one, which I think a lot of people don't think about, is knowing the exact cost of what a service, how much it costs to do that service, and whether or not that cost was being ballooned by staffing, material costs, labor costs, all of that stuff, and making sure we were in that zone where anyone who's in the restaurant business, they understand that is so important. But it's, especially when you're scaling, it can just get out of control so quickly. Mm-hmm. Everyone who's had, been growing, I've had this happen so many times when the manager would come say, we need to hire more people. And I'd always say, for what? And they usually couldn't, because they say, oh, we're busy. But they weren't looking at it from the lens of like, what does that mean? Can we afford it? What will we do when we have it? So those two for sure. So, cost of the service, and the other big one, and I think a lot of people don't think about this enough, is what is your conversion rate?
Right.
If someone is emailing you about your service, like I always say, you need to be in the above 90% if you're doing and your job properly, and you're selling you have the right people at the front line who are dealing with customers. And it's harder and harder these days to do it because people just go, oh, I don't know. They didn't call back. I don't know. I sent one email,
Yeah.
And I always, it's not as much now with COVID, but back when I started, people would drive to where we were. They would bring their dog. They would have a consult. I said, no one is getting in the car. They've researched us. They've got in the car. They've come into your facility. They're talking to you. The only reason they're not doing the service is because something we're doing. They want us to solve this problem for them. They like what they're seeing. Now we must have done something, either how we presented ourselves, not being interested, not showing what we do. And so I think it's a really important rate. And I ask people, it's one of the first questions I ask, what your conversion rate is, and I usually get a blank look.
Mm-hmm. I could see that, just for the one fact that I didn't ever thought about my conversion rate. Again, in past videos of us talking, I didn't know I had a pet sitting business for many years. You know what I mean? So. Right. Yeah, let alone conversion rate, you know what I mean? I didn't realize that until I got my first coach, you know what I mean? And they asked me the same question, and I kind of did that, what? Yeah. And I remember, too, asking her when she said, SOPs, kept saying SOPs, and I'm like, SOPs?
Yes. Is that like SOS?
Yeah, I was like, I know it's something, 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 and I couldn't figure it out, so I felt like a fool having to ask what that was, so not gonna know, didn't know what what my conversion was either. So I know there's a lot of people out there that don't think about that, and so that's, I can see why that's not thought of very often and not converted very often, but it's a very important number to think about constantly, very much.
Well, you spend so much time and money trying to get people to do that for inquiry. Mm-hmm. And you don't spend the same amount of time and energy trying to convert them. So it's kind of a weird disconnect.
Yeah.
It's so hard to get people to come and say, hey, Jessica, I'd love to hear more about your business. I'd love to do and then you don't get back to them for 24 hours, or you don't have the best people possible in your business doing those.
Right.
It seems to be counter than all of that.
That goes back to me always saying the systems run the business you run the systems, where the systems help you keep that conversion rate going up higher. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. All right, that makes a lot of sense. Why you were way ahead of the times, man. Way ahead of the times.
Look at that! I got a Jessica Gold Star.
Yes, you did. Way ahead of the times. Yeah. All right. So what did your day-to-day actually look like when you were in the thick of running your business? You know what I mean? Walk us through what a typical week was back in the day.
It's so funny, and me and you, I don't want to say that we are older. We are.
I don't want to say
we're like a well-aged wine. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good way. We're I don't want to say in our golden age, but I don't know how we can say that politely. But yes, I understand what you're trying to say.
We could, because of that, is we both went through periods of the technology that now exists now, and all of the things that you can use didn't exist back then.
Nope.
So a lot of time was. So when you ask that question, my mind goes back and I can see kind of each era. And they were different things that how my day to day went, because I'll tell you, so in the first bit, we spent 2.5 days of every week just tracking down money that people paying us for services, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when we switched into doing packages, and I think we talked about this once before. And that wasn't because we thought, wow, the packages are such a great idea, which we say now they were. But it really was, hey, this can't sustain itself. I'm literally calling, that's all I'm doing for half the week is just trying to find money to pay the people who are working for us.
Right.
I think the big shift in that, I'm going to jump on the question a little differently. The big shift came from when I was doing everything day to day, from scheduling in the morning to, I always say that period between 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. is the entire day when you're doing sort of a dog walking, sort of pet sitting business. Because you can never catch up on time.
No.
If you don't have that beginning start well, like your walkers get out on time, they got all the information, everyone's clear, they're getting to their first service on time, the minute and I always say this, say you're picking up 10 dogs over your day for walks. You add 10 minutes to each of those things by being not organized, not knowing where you're going, whatever it is, you're adding hours onto their day. So they're going to be behind, clients are going to be upset. The walker won't be happy because the client's yelling at them because they were late.
Right.
So
Yep.
that period, but the big shift for me on my day-to-day is when I went from micromanaging everything to getting systems in place. So I was curating. So the thing that I always talk about is, do you have systems that bring information to you, or do you have a business where you're always reaching out for information? What time are you there? Are you almost at the house? What's going on? Did you do this? Did you talk to this? Did you drop that off? Did you fill out the report? And when you can make that switch, this is how aged I am. We used to, when we first started, every walk that came in, we had one of those, this is another thing, when you have those appointment books that used to have at the dentist or the doctors with
I used to use one of the hairdressers because I owned a beauty salon.
That's exactly what it was. So we would write down like Charlie, Sam, and then every time someone called and emailed, you'd cross it out and flip the pages and move. And then Excel came, and we put everything in Excel, and then you'd have everything printed. And then, of course, as anyone who owns a pet sitting business knows, 2 employees or 2 walkers call in and like, I'm not going to make it today, so you got to go back and move everything over.
Scribble out the day. You're moving everybody around. Oh yeah,
and so they're all different. But I always say that all of those problems is I always tried to figure out a way to make it better when I came up against those problems, instead of just getting stuck in it. Like, what can I do, to make it better? How do I get out of this problem? And I think the biggest thing about your day, how packed it is when you're worrying, when you don't have access to information. I remember how long those early days seemed. Like sitting in bed going, I don't know if you had this, but you'd be sitting in bed going, did we go to John? Did we do that? Did we have that on the walk? Did that person change that? I can't remember. Did we tell so-and-so? You think they locked the door? All of that stuff. And I found that stage was very exhausting. So my day felt very packed, opposed to being able to see the information as it came in.
Oh, I remember calling walkers up and be like, can you drive by so-and-so's house and just make sure the garage door's closed for me? Because you just couldn't remember, and you're like in your head going, I know I closed it. But you're in your head, you're just like, I know I left that open. I know I left it open,
And because you had the same thing when software finally came in, and you switched to it, how that changed everything about running these pet service businesses. I was talking to a client the other day who hadn't switched over and has a decent sized business. And I said to him, I know you don't know this. And because I was exactly where you were doing it the way I did it. And but I said, the minute I switched over, like 2 months later, I was like weeping. I was like, why did I not have this for the last 10 years?
I remember when we got software, when I switched over to software, I was 30 grand chasing 30 grand of money. I mean, you're constantly chasing it. And
Yeah.
I switched to software and I made it so that you had to have a card on file and I charged ahead of time. And I'm collecting all that money and getting finally caught up. I was like, oh, it was like angels were singing in the background in my house. And I was just like, this is like, it was like the best thing that ever happened to me ever. And I was like, and ever since then, everything went through the software. Loved it. It was no offense, my first software was nothing to write home about at
No,
all.
no, no.
And it's actually I just heard recently it's actually finally shutting down because it's still nothing to write home about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But who cares? It worked. It worked. It did its thing. So it's all that matters. But yeah. So all right. Next question. What is something you had to unlearn from previous careers or a mindset in order to succeed in the pet industry? We're a little different here. You know that.
Yeah, I think the thing that I don't know if I had to unlearn it, uh, but I think what's so unique about the pet industry that's the hardest to wrap your head around is that it's an emotional service.
Yeah.
And so to understand the rationality where something seems irrational to a client, like to you from a client, or how a client is perceiving something, or just getting used to that tightrope that you're on. I've
Mm-hmm.
never had anything like that in a previous career that would prepare you for that, because it seemed even people who I brought in from maybe from a more corporate thing at some point, or who had that kind of background who worked for you, they were always, you could see it, they were like, I don't understand, why is this person yelling at me because the leash is dirty, why are they yelling at me because I'm 10 minutes later, that like. And I think that's what's really unique about the industry, and it's even evolved further now, where the way people look at their pets now is even more, family circle than it was when we first started. And I think that was the hardest thing. I don't know if unlearned, but just to be understanding of that's the way it is, and then how to accommodate that in a way that accommodates the clients, but also is sustainable for the people working for you.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I mean, back when, back in the day, back when we started, it was pets were pets, and there were a lot of pets that were considered family, but they were pets. Now these days, pets are family. They truly are family members, and they're definitely treating them differently. You know what I mean? And that's good.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I had clients back when I first started them. After we signed them up, never spoke to them again, really.
Hmm. Yeah.
And now it's a much more active, which is great, a much more active, and so many new first-time pet owners in the last 5 years, who, thank goodness for the internet, have learned everything about all things pets. So you deal with a lot of that now, which I think you just have to be prepared for.
Yeah. All right, last question. If there is a pet business owner right now listening and is feeling stuck or plateaued or overwhelmed or burnt out, what is the first thing you're going to tell them to do this week?
Go on vacation. I guess. I think what I always say is when I get someone like that is I tell them to go away and write down three things. Why do you want to own your own business? What is it that you get joy out of about running this business? And what is the number one thing that is overwhelming? Right? And the reason I do that is not because it's some sort of, will unbreak it, is I think when you're overwhelmed, it's usually three things. It's either usually the systems aren't there in place, so you're just running on a treadmill, like we've all been there. Two, you haven't really you haven't made the mental decision that you want to run a business and everything that comes with that. And it's a mindset that's so important to have, because, and then three, can you really identify what is actually the thing overwhelming you? Is it making decisions? There's too many decisions to make, so you feel overwhelmed all the time. You don't want to make the wrong decision. Is it the responsibility of people working for you and all of that? Everyone knows when you start to have people working for you, it can be overwhelming. And that clarity, it's sort of like when you're really upset and you've got something welling up inside of you with something else going on, and then you release it, and then you suddenly feel that kind of like air come out of you.
Yeah.
I think it's just getting people to refocus and say, hey, just these three questions. Because if those three questions are muddy or they're not sure,
Mm-hmm.
then it's time to have a real conversation and say, hey, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Because those things are not going to go away. Right. And I think it's not, yes, there's the business advice of saying, hey, let's look at your systems and all of that stuff. But I think it's more for me when someone's feeling that way is, hey, let's just do a pulse check here
That's a
and
good.
make sure that we are where we think we are. Because if someone comes back, and you've had this, Jessica, where they come back with some of those answers, you might say, hey, this might not be what you want to be doing. So let's talk through that. Right.
No, it's a very good point because a lot of times people get into this business because they want to work with animals because they think that this business is always working with animals and not working with people. But in reality, this business is all working with people. You know what I mean? It's a people business. You know what I mean? And the dogs and cats are a bonus, but you're not really working with dogs and cats that much. You work with a lot of people, and the people are they're particular because it's their children that you're working with.
And I'm a big believer, and you do a good job of this. I'm a big believer that energy, people who you work for, the clients, they take energy from you, right? Good
Yeah.
and bad. And so, what the most important advice I give to people who are going to be running their own business is to have things outside of your business that give you joy, that give you release. As you know, I still play hockey,
Yes.
even though everybody keeps getting younger and I get older. But that is such a important release for me, just to have that, having family, having going out. You get a lot of people who just everything is the business.
Right.
And I say you actually are doing a disservice to your business by not giving yourself a chance to clear your mind, to have other people around you who don't want to care or
Yeah.
talk about your business. I have lots of friends who could care less about hearing anything about my business.
Right.
And I think those kind of things, like the pulse check, and also is the work life balance making sense for you to be productive in your business.
Right. I do dirt time. I like gardening. You know that. I like my flowers. I'm already started planting. It's not even ready. I'm already winter sowing. I've done that. I'm always out in the dirt
And
time.
you got more friends than anyone I know.
I just know a person.
No
You
person.
ask me. I got a guy. That's a
Yeah,
Chicago
if you're going to
thing.
be in Cincinnati, you go see this guy.
Yep, I got a guy. I know somebody. And I'm going this week to go learn more people. I got to get more connections. Got to
That's
go.
right. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that's this week's chat. We learned a little bit more about Matt and who he knows, and a little bit more about his business. So, thanks for sharing this week.
Of
Next
course.
week I'm on the block.
That's right. I've been working on these questions all week, so I'm excited.
Well, next week it's my turn. So we'll see you guys next week. And good talking to you guys. Talk to you soon. Thanks for listening to Pet Biz People. If you love this episode, like, subscribe, share it with a friend, and add to your playlist. Find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere you love to listen. Want to be featured or ask a question? Email us at connect@petbizpeople.ca. And if you're ready to work together, book a call at petbizpeople.ca. We'd love to find the best fit for you. See you next time.